So what kind of conversations do you have in your workplace and in the way you engage with other people? I hope they're conversations worth having. Today we're talking with Amy Kosh about the role that conversation plays in her role as a visionary coach. Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks, Sherry.
What is a visionary coach?
So one way to think about visionary coaching is really that we're working towards the future. So we're working towards the vision of what the person or the group or the company wants to create for their future. And we're starting with where they are now, what's working well, and how do we create more of that? So that's essentially what visionary coaching is really all about.
So it sounds like conversations plays a central role in your work.
Absolutely. So I do all my coaching over the phone when I'm working with individuals, and even when working in groups. Obviously, the way that we're communicating is through conversations. So it's a necessary element. In fact, it is the only necessary element for coaching.
Do you do anything to plan or prepare yourself so that the conversations you have with your client are really worth having?
I love that question because it actually made me realize the thing I do is absolutely not plan. I don't plan because if I planned, I would be bringing my assumptions or I would be driving towards a certain outcome before I even hear what the person I'm in conversation with wants to have happen or change or what is up for them. And my job as the facilitator or coach is really to listen for where are they now, what are they struggling with, what can I see because I'm outside of that bell jar, and what kinds of questions can I ask that will allow them a different perspective or a different viewpoint or a different access.
And so how do you come up with those questions? If you're not thinking about them, where do they come from?
So I have a stockpile of about 1,000. And I actually when I hear great questions, I actually have a journal that I write them in. And then I read that occasionally. And a lot of times it's the question that I'm really most interested in understanding. So there's a lot of business coaching I do. And people often will tell me all the things that are working and how they're, moving this and moving that. And then they say, well, and then there's this other thing that's not working. And they'll lay it out for me so beautifully. And I'm fascinated because a lot of times they don't hear how well they've clarified their own problem. So one of my favorite questions is, what are you pretending not to know? And that opens up a whole other area. Because when you ask that, we all have stuff that we're pretending not to know. And the minute we really are willing to dive into that question, it opens up a whole bunch more that are really great.
Yeah, that's a provocative and disruptive question.
Yeah, I love that term disruptive too. I used to teach photography, and I often walked into class and I would say in the very early in the semester, I'd say, photography is a lie. And man, that got a lot of responses. Okay. And in a lot of ways, I think about, a lot of what I was doing then with showing people, what you think you're looking at can be viewed so many ways. Yeah. And it's the same thing I'm doing with my coaching work.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So when you're listening, how are you listening?
So I'm literally listening with my whole body. Whether I'm coaching over the phone or I'm working with a group, part of it, actually the smaller part is what I hear. And what I hear is both the words and the timbre or tone of their voice or the speed with which they're speaking. And the other part that I'm getting is a physical, visceral reaction to what I'm hearing. And I've done it long enough, but I'm also really trying to pay attention to if somebody says something and my gut goes, that's not quite accurate, then I'll ask, right? What is it about what you just told me that feels maybe a little off, or what feels uncomfortable in that, or where do you see that you're falling into a habit with that? And I literally trust the information that my body tells me when I'm working with people, particularly in groups. And it's also fun to get people to play when they're doing that, because they say, oh, you can't really. I'm like, yeah, you can. You can tell when somebody's not telling you the truth.
So
and we even have a term for it. We call it used car salesman.
Ah, okay.
We all know that reference, right?
We do. We do indeed.
Like, yeah, he's not, he's, right, you want to buy this now. It's the best car ever. No, it's not. And you know it. Yeah.
So what kind of advice? Most of us listen for the words, and we're thinking about questions from a headspace.
Yeah.
What advice might you give to people for them to be able to listen with their body and ask questions from a body space? I love that idea.
Yeah, that's a great question. Exhale first before you say anything. And for me, the most interesting questions come out of a desire to really understand what the other person is trying to say. I think the minute I get into my own headspace and I'm trying to get something across, I really stop listening. So when I catch myself, and I don't do it as often in coaching because I've kind of been trained not to, but in any conversation, if what I'm doing is genuinely trying to understand where are they trying to get to, or what are they trying to create, or what are they trying to have me understand, that creates a much broader space for me to really hear what they're saying. So
sitting in a place of curiosity.
Oh, absolutely.
Sounds
That's
like
my favorite word.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I think my clients probably get sick of hearing me say, so I invite you to bring some curiosity to it.
That's great. And I've just lost it. What about if there's a like a really tough issue that you have to confront a client with? How do you manage a conversation around that?
A willingness to be brave and a willingness not to be liked. And to just ask the question that I think is going to be the most useful for that person or that group. Sometimes that means that they get ticked off or angry at me. Sometimes people cry, and I need to be okay with that because that's also a doorway for them. And it's one that they can move through to create or to move it towards whatever they want to create in their future. The other part of that is that it has to come from a place of genuine love and caring. And in bringing, like, that's the foundation from where we start. And so there is this level of relationship and trust and genuine love for the client, for each other in some ways, and a lot of respect for what this person or this group is willing to do to create what they want to create next.
Right. So it sounds like if I could summarize what I've heard you say about having conversations worth having with your clients, is that first and foremost, it's there's something about you that you bring to it, that you're open, you're curious, you're caring about the other and not about yourself, and that you really love this person. Your desire is to help them excel. And so that's going to influence the tone and direction of anything you say.
Yeah.
that comes out. And then from that also, to listen with your whole being. And from your whole being to ask those questions that feel like this is what will help create an unstoppable life for this person.
That was beautiful. I love that. And as you're summarizing it occurs to me like that if we can do those things in every conversation we have,
yeah,
man, the whole world could change.
Yes, yeah, in a heartbeat. Yeah, yeah. Just imagine.
Consider that one for a minute. But because I never really expanded it outward to that level. But if we all approached every person we met, whether we agree with them or not, with that kind of like, let me hear what you want to say.
Right. Yeah. Really from a place of curiosity and connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
can you give me just a real quick example, obviously not using names, but a quick example of a client experience where you had that real capacity to help open a door and help them move beyond what was stopping them?
So there was a woman who was a brand new CEO, and she had just been appointed to this position. It wasn't one she had been seeking, and she was kind of on the terrified scale. And as we started working together, we worked together for about 4 months, and as we started working together, I noticed she never said I. She always said, well, when you do this and when you do that, but she was talking about herself. And I kept pointing this out, and she kept saying, no, I don't do that, I don't do that. And I said, look, listen to the recordings, you'll hear it. She could not hear it. For months, she couldn't hear it. And then we were talking about a critical voice that comes up for people, which is what gets in our way. Yeah. And she said something, and I forget the question I asked her, but at that point, I remember that she got pretty quiet, and I thought, oh, yeah, she's going to get really pissed in a minute. And she said, oh my God, you're right. Here's why I don't say I. And she figured it just was like perfectly clear in front of her, and she had never realized it before. And it was such a profound moment because for me, I was like, oh my God, you saw it. And I was so happy for her. And it was such a wonderful, like, I'm proud of you, like you're my kid, proud of you. Uh-huh. And also what happened at that point was our conversations started to be more about how she could broaden the conversation she was having with her company, and how she wanted to change the way that those conversations happened within the corporate structure that she now had a capacity to do. And it was so cool to see that too. So yeah, so that's one of them.
Very exciting. Definitely a conversation worth having.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because she changed, and then it's like, oh, my little darling went off and changed a whole company. So yeah.
So if people would like to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
So they can find me most easy on my website, which is anunstoppablelife.com. And you can email me from there, or you can fill out a questionnaire if you're interested in talking to me about coaching. And there's tons of information in the blogs, and there's some videos, so dig around. But that's the easiest way to get a hold of me is anunstoppablelife.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks so much, Sherry.
And if you're interested in more information about how to have conversations worth having, check out the book, Conversations Worth Having. And our website is conversationsworthhaving.today. So thanks, Amy, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and continued great conversations.
And thank you, Sherry. This was a real pleasure. And I am loving your book, I have to tell you.
Oh, thank you.